Okay, I am sorry for the wait on this video. I just wanted to be able to go through and get all the recent injury updates going. That way we don't have any uncertainty. And yeah, we got a lot to talk about. We had a lot of players like popping up on the COVID list, stuff that we weren't necessarily expecting coming into this week. We're going to talk about some options that you can go through and fix your starting lineup with. Real quick, let me pull up the live chat, set up the stream really quick because you know this is going to be an emergency stream right here. And please, if you have not done so already, go down there, drop a like on the live stream. Thank you so much for everybody who's coming out to the stream already. And yeah, I mean, we got a lot of people out here right now. Okay, so a lot of people asking about Joe Mixon, yada, yada, yada. We'll get to that in 1 second. Let me just make sure this chat's on subscriber only. And like I said, if you have not done so already, please go down there, drop a like and a subscribe to the channel, even though I know everybody in the live chat right now, of course, is already subscribed. That should be it. Actually, we got one other thing, and that is go check out our friends at Underdog Fantasy. You've probably been seeing us go through and do a bunch of drafts on Underdog Fantasy. Well, I mean, later today, you're going to get to see us go make some player prop bets. Maybe we'll get a draft going tonight. We'll see how fun we're feeling. And this Ezekiel Elliott over honestly looks pretty appealing based on something we're about to talk about with Tony Pollard right here. But when you go sign up with Underdog Fantasy and you use promo code FLOCK, you can find the link in the description of the video, and you can also find the link down there in the comment section. They will match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100, so please take advantage of that. And yeah, that should be it. Let's go through. Let's dive into these injury updates, and let's start it off with Alex Collins. Yes, I know we're starting it off with an exciting player here. We're going to go with Alex Collins. And here, I mean, you're essentially going to be looking at Alex Collins in a light that's saying, yes, he has a great matchup, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. You can't start Alex Collins. Now, what's interesting about this situation, though, is you don't have Adrian Peterson. You don't have Travis Homer. So it's really just going to be Alex Collins and Rashad Penny. So, I mean, I honestly thought that Penny could be very intriguing in the light of no Adrian Peterson and Homer. It sucks that Alex Collins is going to be active here because this will be a 50-50 split. And based on how the Seattle Seahawks offense has looked, I don't necessarily think you can start anybody here. But yeah, let's go over and let's find our next player. It's going to be Daryl Henderson. Daryl Henderson got in a limited practice on Thursday, also got in a limited practice on Friday. So looks like Daryl Henderson should be good to go for Monday night. Now, it's really concerning just seeing that, I mean, Sony Michelle looked so damn effective this past week. Now, of course, it was a really easy matchup for Sony Michelle. It was the exact game flow that you were wanting against the Jacksonville Jaguars at the same time. But I think maybe is to a point where they are going to go through and they're going to use a little bit more of a committee backfield. I'm not necessarily thinking you can start Sony Michelle, but I do think maybe the presence of Michelle is going to make Daryl Henderson himself a little bit less appealing. So honestly, I would probably sit this game out. Also considering the fact that they're probably going to be forced to throw the ball because this should be a competitive contest with the Arizona Cardinals. And maybe, just maybe, we actually get them going more towards Cooper Kupp and Van Jefferson. But let's get to the next one. This will be a player in that same matchup. Let's go over to Zach Ertz. Got in a limited practice. Looks like Zach Ertz is going to be good to go. No reason to worry about Zach Ertz. You go through and you can just continue to rely on him with the tight end position being so volatile. Once you get past those top end options, you're looking for those players that are in elite level offenses. Think about the tight ends that have come off the waiver wire so far this season. Guys like Dawson Knox, Dalton Schultz. What do they have in common? They have in common that they are in some of the best passing offenses in the NFL. No exception here with Zach Ertz. And now our next running back will be Jeremy Mcnichols, who cleared the concussion protocol. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean you can go through and look to start Jeremy Mcnichols, of course. Now, it's a great matchup against the Jacksonville Jaguars, but it does have an impact on if you were planning on starting Dontrell Hilliard. It does have an impact on if you were planning on starting Donta Foreman, because now I think this running back backfield goes from possibly being a 50-50 split between Foreman and Dontrell Hilliard to now being a three-man committee. And just because, I mean, these guys aren't that talented to begin with, I think the presence of Jeremy Mcnichols makes it where if you were going through and relying on Donta Foreman in your flex spot, you got to take him out. You got to go through. You have to put in a wide receiver instead. And of course, you know, we're rocking UT today. Hook 'em horns. Love me some Donta Foreman, but you can't play him even in a great matchup. And it looks like Debo Samuel is someone that you can play. Debo Samuel just got in a full practice. Now, yes, it was in walkthroughs, yada, yada, yada. Right now, he's listed as a game time decision. We have already discussed the fact that when Debo Samuel is fully healthy, he has clearly demonstrated that he is a top 5 wide receiver. However, based on this being a soft tissue groin injury, I'm going to be a little bit less excited about him coming back this first week back in. So I'm actually probably going to scale back our expectations on Debo Samuel. I'll be expecting him to be a wide receiver too, because, I mean, we've used this example so many times before. If a player is coming off the COVID list, if a player is getting cleared from a concussion, I mean, while you're not going to say a concussion is a good injury to have with their long-term health, I mean, obviously that's something that's very serious and you feel bad for the players dealing with that. But in terms of their fantasy football workload the following week, it's not like they're going, okay, hey, Jeremy Mcnichols, he's been dealing with the concussion. Let's take it easy on him. Let's not give him his usual workload. No, they're going to treat it as, okay, we got Jeremy Mcnichols back. There's nothing else to worry about here. It's a little bit different when you have these groin injuries, these soft tissue injuries. I think they play a little bit more conservative with Debo Samuel, and Kyle Shanahan doesn't force feed him the ball as usual. And now going over to our next backfield, this will be Deandre Swift and Jamal Williams. So Deandre Swift ruled out with his own injury, and now Jamal Williams also out on the COVID list. I don't think this changes much because you weren't going to be planning on starting Jamal Williams anyway. And this is something that I got horribly wrong. I mean, last week, just remember what we were saying last week is I was saying those running backs like Jamal Williams, David Montgomery, these guys that are in horrendous offenses, if they're going to get 85% of the touches, it doesn't matter how bad their offense is. You go through and you play them every single week just based on the workload alone. Well, we were horribly wrong in that analysis, in that we threw Jamal Williams into that category. And no, Jamal Williams isn't getting that workload. Jamal Williams instead actually played 50% of the snaps. He saw half of the touches in the Detroit Lions backfield this past week. There's no reason to just continue to talk about how wrong I was. You can't even play him this week. Now, in reference of Jamar Jefferson, this is going to be who people are going to go to. I think based on how bad this offense is overall, if it was the Los Angeles Rams, sure, you go through and you find whoever that starting running back is going to be. If you go and you look at the running back 3 on that depth chart and you have both Sony Michelle and Daryl Henderson missing, you go, in hell, there are going to be trips to the red zone. There are going to be points to be scored at the running back position for the Los Angeles Rams, despite whoever the player is. Not that situation in Detroit. I think that if you don't have, Deandre Swift or Jamal Williams, you just completely ignore the running back position here. And also, one other thing that we can say is TJ Hawkinson is also listed as doubtful. Let me go through and pull up the implied team total that we have for this week with the Detroit Lions. Because, if TJ Hawkinson's also going to be out, I just simply have no idea how the Detroit Lions are going to be able to move the ball down the field. Yeah, right now, if you're looking at Las Vegas, they currently have the Detroit Lions as the second to last team with projected points scored, only ahead of the Chicago Bears. So, interesting. I think that Chicago probably outscores Detroit this week. And nonetheless, you can't start anybody in Detroit. And now our next player, Tony Pollard. We already referenced this at the top of the video, but there's going to be no Tony Pollard, at least. He's not officially ruled out. He did not practice on Friday, though. So I'm assuming that you don't have Tony Pollard playing this week. And that means that although Ezekiel Elliott has been very disappointing, although Ezekiel Elliott, has a pretty tough matchup against the Washington football team, you go through and you play Ezekiel Elliott. There's not going to be another running back in that backfield that is getting touches here in Dallas. Yes, of course, it's frustrating that he's not fully healthy. Yes, he's looked pretty bad over the past few weeks. Regardless of if you're talking about a fantasy football context or just watching him play the game of football, yeah, he hasn't looked like himself, but it doesn't really matter. If you don't have Tony Pollard here, you're going through and you're playing Ezekiel Elliott everywhere you can. Now, our next news is going to be going over to the New York Giants, and I feel so bad for Giants fans. Like, if you are a Giants fan, I don't even know what you take from this season just because you don't have anybody really playing. You have Saquon Barkley. He's played like 3 solid weeks so far. You've had Daniel Jones missing a couple of those weeks. You've also had your wide receiver core just decimated all season. Well, it looks like at least you're not going to have to throw out Jake Fromm. At least Jake Fromm's not going to be the starting quarterback here. Looks like Mike Glennon is going to start, and it looks like also both Sterling Shepard and Kenny Golladay will play. So maybe I think you go through and look to just play Saquon Barkley from this offense. Now, I say that with hesitance because I've been the guy coming out and I've been saying, buy low on Barkley, buy low on Barkley, buy low on Barkley. Similar to what we were saying with David Montgomery. Yes, they're running backs that, are playing in horrible offenses. But our projection with Saquon Barkley was that he was going to be the guy. And we need to make sure to this because it seems like this is all I talk about at this point of the year when you know what the workloads are. 85% of the touches, 85% of the touches. That's like the main thing that matters here. And you were getting that with Saquon Barkley before the injury. But this past week, Devonte Booker got work in New York. Devonte Booker got about 35% of the touches in this backfield. And if this offense is not necessarily going to be league average, they're not going to be above average league. I mean, they're going to be at the very bottom. You can't have Saquon Barkley losing touches to Devonte Booker. We were wrong thinking he was going to be a bell cut guy. It looks like he is not. Now, that being said, while he may not be the top 12 running back we were projecting him to be, he is still going to be at the minimum a mid running back 2 based on his involvement as a receiver and also based on the idea that he's going up against the Los Angeles Chargers. This is a great matchup for any running back. Obviously, the Chargers defense is more of a run funnel defense here. So you have to play Barkley, even though I owe everybody in this chat right now. If you went through and you traded for Saquon Barkley based on my advice, I was wrong. I owe you an apology, and I am an idiot. Okay, now let's go to our next situation. That's going to be in that same game. Let's go over to the Los Angeles Chargers, where Keenan Allen, obviously, we all know Keenan Allen. He has COVID. He's out this game. Now, there's a scare, halfway through the week that you weren't going to have Mike Williams either. Looks like Mike Williams will play. Apparently Mike Williams has been taking test after test after test. They're all negative. Based on the reports that I'm reading, keep in mind, this is the first year that we've ever dealt with this. So I can't really draw back to go, in 2016, we had a similar situation when yada, yada, yada. No, we don't know what's going on with these COVID procedures. I probably should know a little bit more than I do. But based on what I'm reading, looks like Mike Williams should be good to go. And of course, if you have Mike Williams playing in a game that there's no Keenan Allen, Mike Williams should be a low-end wide receiver 1, especially in a nice matchup. But please double check this on Sunday morning. It looks like he is trending towards playing though. And now our next update, we'll be going over to Elijah Mitchell, going to be out with the knee and the concussion. So I know a lot of people probably want to run to Jeff Wilson. And I'm going to say, I don't think we can, because I think this is a running back backfield that, yes, of course, can score a lot of points, but pinning down exactly what the workloads are going to look like will be a very difficult task. Because if y'all remember, just a month ago, before JaMychal Hasty suffered his own injury, JaMychal Hasty was actually seeing, about 30% of the snaps in that San Francisco 49ers backfield and being the primary pass-catching running back alongside Elijah Mitchell before the injury. Of course, after the injury, that changed. But we've already seen that Kyle Shanahan wants to get JaMychal Hasty involved. And maybe, and of course, it's horrible for me to say this, but just maybe they somehow work Trey Sermon in there, even though Sermon's looks so damn bad as well. So I think that with San Francisco, most likely the running back is Jeff Wilson, but I don't think he's going to get a big enough piece of that pie of the running back backfield to justify starting him. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if Jeff Wilson came out and he had 18 rushing attempts, he had 120 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. Like, it's in the range of outcomes. It's possible. But for you to go through and for you to confidently project exactly what Kyle Shanahan will be doing tomorrow with this running back room, I just think if you pretended you could do that, you're crazy. You're a madman. No, you can't. And now our next update will be going over to the New Orleans Saints, and it looks like both Taysom Hill and Alvin Kamara will be good to go. As we discussed before the Alvin Kamara injury, we are lowering our expectations for Kamara in this offense alongside Taysom Hill. And with Taysom Hill, he is going to be a great quarterback in fantasy in his own right, but very similar to what we said with Cam Newton, you are going to have Taysom Hill as a good fantasy quarterback based on his rushing upside with both rushing yards and rushing touchdowns. But it will not be producing points for the wide receivers, for the running backs. He will actively be vulturing away production because we know that Taysom Hill, he's a big guy. Whenever he had his month of starting last season, he was averaging a rushing touchdown a game. And at the same time, you had seen Alvin Kamara's targets per game get cut in half during that same time period where Taysom Hill was the starting quarterback. And it makes sense. This is a league-wide trend that we've been talking about for years. These mobile quarterbacks that don't just stand there in the pocket and they can actually move outside. They're not going to be checking the ball down to the running backs as often as others. And the reason for that is very simple. The pocket collapses. They can just tuck it, run, go pick up the first down that way. Whereas your traditional pocket passing options, someone like Jameis Winston, someone like Drew Brees, or Teddy Bridgewater, historically in New Orleans, their only option is to dump it off to Alvin Kamara and pray that Kamara himself can run for the first down. So please lower your expectations with Kamara, but I think you can play both Taysom Hill and Alvin Kamara this week. Just, you have to know Kamara is not a top 3 running back. Alvin Kamara is probably a low-end running back 1 instead. Okay, so now our next update will be going over to the Las Vegas Raiders, where Darren Waller is going to be officially out. And with Darren Waller being out, I mean, you have your same exact stance. You go through and you start Hunter Renfrow. Hunter Renfrow is a low-end, I don't want to say low-end wide receiver 1. He's a high-end wide receiver 2 this week in a full PPR format based on the targets that are available in Las Vegas with no Darren Waller. Now, it's interesting to see the implied team total for the Las Vegas Raiders. This is something that we talked about once this offense lost Henry Ruggs, and that Henry Ruggs himself, I mean, viewed by the majority of fantasy football players as not that talented of a wide receiver. Now, I'm not sitting here just trying to be some Henry Ruggs fan, of course, but he did make an impact on this offense and his speed with the ability to stretch the field and keep 2 safeties back. And also, of course, Darren Waller, I mean, was the primary mover of the football on this offense. Well, when you remove both of them, the expectations from the Las Vegas Raiders standpoint, they have to drastically go down. Because if you're looking at what you have right now with Las Vegas projections, they are currently projecting, and these are sports books, and as I've said a million times before, and I know you're tired of hearing me say it, but Las Vegas, they know more than you, and they know more than me. And that's true for everybody watching this video, everybody watching any video on YouTube, yada, yada, yada. They currently have the Las Vegas Raiders pegged right between the Atlanta Falcons and the New York Jets with their implied team total. Like, they're saying this Raiders offense is going to struggle. With that being said, I think you probably start Hunter Renfrow, Josh Jacobs, and that is it. I think you have to be pretty worried about this offense with the loss of their top 2 weapons. Okay, so now our next update, if I can find this, is going to be going over to the Miami Dolphins, where Myles Gaskin is on the COVID list. Now with Miami, I mean, it doesn't really matter because they are on the bye week this week. It looks like Myles Gaskin should be good to go the following week. So honestly, I probably shouldn't have even written this down because reports are saying that he's vaccinated. Now, Melvin Gordon, I mean, this is one of the updates I know everybody's here for. He's looking like he's going to be good for Sunday. So, of course, this sucks for all of us Javonte Williams owners. Y'all know I came out and we are jumping up and down doing, cartwheels essentially earlier this week with how excited we were with everybody watching this channel that has Javonte Williams. I mean, we were all excited. Now, with Melvin Gordon being active, the hope here is that Melvin Gordon, instead of getting half of the work in this backfield, gets 25%. I think Melvin Gordon, of course, is not going anywhere, but if they shrink his role based on how effective Javonte Williams has been, which we've been calling for all season now, I think that Javonte Williams can still be a high-end running back 2 in fantasy, low-end running back 1, especially Melvin Gordon's first week back in, because this is one of those injuries that you could see him going through and limiting his workload based on the injury. Also, it's going to be going up against the Detroit Lions, where right now, this game isn't supposed to be that competitive. I know that the Denver Broncos aren't going to be favored in a lot of contests, but this should be one of them. Where, right now, if you're looking at the Detroit Lions, they are 10-point underdogs. 10-point underdogs to the Denver Broncos. I think they go through. I think they play a fully healthy Javonte Williams. I'm still starting Javonte Williams. Now, our next update, we'll be going over to Chicago, where you have both David Montgomery and Allen Robinson good to go this week. Now, I'm assuming that you're starting David Montgomery and you're benching Allen Robinson. Really, the only significant impact that you have from Allen Robinson being active is then you need to be lowering your expectations down with Darnell Mooney. And as we previously discussed at the top of this video, right now, which we've already talked about Vegas knowing more than all of us, the implied team total, according to Las Vegas lines, for the Chicago Bears this week, 15.25. They're projecting the Bears to score 15 points essentially. They're 12.5-point dogs to the Green Bay Packers. Obviously, the Packers have an elite defense. I think that you go through and you probably avoid every single player outside of David Montgomery in this situation. Like, you have to play David Montgomery, as we discussed a week ago, because with David Montgomery, this is a running back that, is going to get, what do we always say, 85% of his touches. So you're going to go through and you're going to play him, but please have your expectations a little bit lowered here. And now our next update, we'll be going over and talking about Julio Jones. Julio Jones should be activated today. Julio Jones has been practicing in full every single day this week. Now with Julio Jones, it's very encouraging to see that he's practicing in full and he's not limited in these practices based on reports. And obviously, it's a great matchup as well against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Obviously, it's great that you don't have A.J. Brown in this offense either. I would say Julio Jones has an elite level ceiling this week. Now, the floor, that's a little bit of a different thing that we can talk about. I think he probably does have a little bit of a lower floor here. So I would say if you're going over, say, on Underdog Fantasy and you're going to do one of their DFS tournament lineups, maybe not a bad idea to go through and draft Julio Jones, knowing that he does have that elite level ceiling. He can come out and he score 30 points. But if you're just going through and submitting a starting lineup in your regular fantasy football league, probably a spot that you need to be looking to avoid. Probably a pretty scary situation. Okay, so now our last update that we are going to have is Elijah Moore is looking like a game time decision this week. We've discussed this previously, but with Elijah Moore, I mean, if he plays, I think that there are reasons to be pessimistic and optimistic. Y'all know that Elijah Moore, I mean, if y'all are watching our Dynasty channel last offseason, I mean, I loved Elijah Moore coming out of Ole Miss. Now, the issue is Zack Wilson, the New Orleans Saints. I think that this could easily be a matchup where this offense simply cannot move the ball down the field. But at the same time, you do have Corey Davis out as well. If Corey Davis is out, you're going to have targets available for Elijah Moore. So there's a lot up in the air. It looks like he should get the opportunity. I believe that he is an elite level talent. The issue is the matchup. And yeah, I think that should be it. Let's go through and I will tease a little bit before we officially make these bets over there on, actually not on a different channel. We used to do it on the sports betting channel, but no, we're going to do it on this channel in about, I want to say 4 hours. I just want to see if there are any other injury reports. That way we get more player props popping up on Underdog Fantasy because, you know, they add them going closer into Sunday. I will say as a quick teaser, some of my favorite bets this week are going to be the under for Alvin Kamara, the under on Donta Foreman, and the under on, actually no, that Taysom Hill line's fine. These are two lines that I really like. Let's see if they have any rivals lines. These rivals lines change so fast. I like the over on Hollywood Brown. I mean, Hollywood Brown versus Jarvis Landry, and Hollywood's getting an extra half a yard. I know Landry looked good this past week, but still, I mean, if you're looking at the volume we've had from Hollywood Brown, he's getting 10 targets almost every single week. I know a lot of people are probably going to go through and try to jam in this Rashad Bateman versus Sammy Watkins. I would avoid it. Please don't make this bet. I think that at this point of their respective careers, Rashad Bateman probably the more talented wide receiver, but Sammy Watkins last week actually ran more routes than Rashad Bateman. Of course, we'll go through and we'll talk about all of these. There are a ton of them. We'll do that in a couple hours. And I think that should be it. Of course, you can go down there, drop that like, subscribe to the channel to support, or you can go make a deposit on Underdog Fantasy. Your first deposit on Underdog Fantasy to go check out some of those player props will get matched dollar for dollar up to $100. So yeah, we'll be going through and making our bets on Underdog Fantasy later today on the channel. And at the same time, later tonight, we'll be going through and answering your start-sit questions. So please subscribe. You can find the link to Underdog Fantasy as well in the live chat. You can find that in the description of the video. I hope you all have a great day, and I hope I see you all with the live stream tonight.